The following continues from Unexpected Visitors, Part 1, and continues the Sarge Tale playlist. Across a mountain range whose peaks were gleaming under the light of an unknown source, a massive battle raged between two ageless, yet mostly unknown champions of the realms. As the destruction of mountain summits from misaimed or evaded attacks filled the air of this small demi-plane, the only noise that could be heard above the sound of grinding snow and ice was that of the combatants who were unleashing such degrees of devastation on each other, with no banter or witty dialogue between the massive, 9-headed dragon, Naiwi, and the upgraded battle suit of Sergeant Hawn. While the new combat form of the battle suit nearly doubled its height and scale, while equally enhancing the weapons, defenses, and other systems, he was still only a third of the shoulder height of the draconic first, and Naiwi was not hesitant in pressing his advantage, while allowing his numerous heads to negate Hawn's multiplicative Utse forms. Normally, Hawn would flit between the various Utses, attacking in concert with each other, flashing away to another one if he was to be hit with any sort of meaningful blow, before resetting his Utses to continue the cycle of avoidance and attack. Naiwi, however, could target all 4 of his Utses at once, as well as Hawn himself, and still have heads to spare. And if it were not for the extreme potency of his own attacks, Hawn would have been nothing but an annoyance to the claw of the Nine Wings. But from the gifts of Jaxum, his father and creator, and Verisar, his former commander, combined with thousands of years of experience, all allowed Hawn to keep the battle an even contest. Had Naiwi been acting in the stead of the Nine Wings, there would be no contest. But as Hawn brought this battle to an end suddenly by deploying his whip sword from himself and each of his Utse, all flashing in close and entangling all 9 of his opponents' head into a sudden knot, and driving them into the broken surface of a mountain with enough force to shake the snow clear of several nearby summits. It was clear that this was not the case here. As the mighty dust cloud and snow cloud that were kicked up by the impact began to settle and clear, a soft, multi-layered chuckle and mirthful laughter could be heard as Naiwi pulled himself from the crater and shrank to a more sociable size, while still twice the height of Hawn's battlesuit. With Hawn's suit now shifted into its starfighter mode, and Hawn himself lazily laying on top, sipping from a pocket flask, the sounds of combat echoing were slowly replaced by soft, complex conversations. The conversations that followed, hard if not impossible for a normal person to follow, saw each of Naiwi's heads engage in a separate dialogue with Hawn, with him answering and asking his own questions in a disjointed manner, with short, clipped responses. To an outsider, the only fact that could be ascertained with any clarity was that these two were old acquaintances. Hawn filled in the gaps of history and events that Naiwi still had, as he had been in the greater cluster when the home realm vanished, and Naiwi conveyed to Hawn the events of the greater cluster, as well as his reasoning for dragging Hawn into this current brewing calamity. Simply put, the old worm didn't know who else to entrust with such pivotal duties. There were so few that remained that Niwe knew and trusted. So he chose an old friend and son of Jackson, as well as the descendant of the man entrusted with the Expedus Primus prior to the loss of Jam'mar. That man had been of honor, power, and dedication to the realms, and had sacrificed his very soul to entrap the avatar of the daemon on the command deck of the Primus, so it could be slain by the V's ages later. One other had been chosen, but the details of that Niwe kept to himself, only letting a single mention of another slip. Hawn knew better than to press. The hint was enough, and he had a feeling he would meet up with this third when the time was right. Niwe smiled with each head when Hawn came to the conclusion that the upgrades, the return of his suit and weapons of old, the capture of the Star Forge, all of it was planned for and anticipated by Niwe's designs. The collection of faces, which had been grinning like an elven cat with a fresh saucer of dew cream, turned sour when Hawn next asked about his knight, Lord Starwalker. Niwe informed Hawn that due to an act of logical disobedience that occurred in a most unexpected situation, the ability to engage in a ploy had presented itself, and he had revoked Starwalker's scale in furtherance of that trickery. As he further explained, the nature of their foe was one that was not yet fully revealed, so such acts of subterfuge were necessary if they were to find victory. To all but those truly in the know, Niwe was removed from this task, and another had been called in to take over, and Starwalker is free from being under the yoke of the Dragon First. For the most part, it was all true. To a degree, Niwe assured Hawn, and the latter began to climb back into his suit to begin the trip home, happy that his old friend was not as crazy as it had been proposed. He was far more insane, and the realms would need such insanity if it was to meet the challenges that were to come. Hawn had a dreadful certainty of this. The only thing that brought a smile to his face was the knowledge that Starwalker was free of being so directly controlled, and he idly wondered if Niwe was aware of the chance that despite the loss of the scale, Starwalker could very well retain or reattain his former powers by nature of how praetors were designed. He wouldn't have the extra might that a first could grant their knight, but even so, Hawn suspected Starwalker would still be a match for any other Dragon Knight outside of Dragon Haven elites, or perhaps the bodyguard of the Lord Protector of the NLR. With a final word of warning as to the stakes of this grand endeavor, and a reply that was only just on this side of insultingly smartass, Hawn and his suit blinked from the demiplane, sent back to his Star Forge by the merest flash of Niwe's might as the claw of the Nine Wings. Soon after, Niwe left himself, and the demiplane collapsed in on itself, leaving nothing behind but scattered matter spreading out amongst interplanar space. In a few hours, there would not be even a cloud of dust to mark its memory. Niwe thought for a moment on this. If this was to be the fate of it all, and with certainty born of having the creator of all as your boss, he vowed it would not be. Starwalker would still play his part, and possibly better than he ever could have as Nawi's direct agent. He only hoped Starwalker was of the same mind. The following occurs prior to the entry The Brothers Caliber, Series 2, Entry 35. Kill her. Two words that brought the formidable and near indescribable mental processes of Lord Starwalker, Praetor Dragon Knight of Niwe, the Claw and Avatar of the Nine Wings himself, to a screeching halt. Kill her? Kill her. Of course, this shock was not preventing his bonded lord, Niwe, from using his body as a glorified comm unit to argue with the goddess that had just shown up unannounced to Farmhold and in full display of her powers. Such actions would no doubt draw unwanted eyes to the area, and Cathian could ill afford such problems. However, the true issue was which goddess had chosen to arrive. Were it one of the younger, less powerful, and less notable of the divine, perhaps it would not have riled up the old worm so much. The fact that this goddess was also successfully arguing her position with him only added to Niwe's annoyance. But then again, Genevieve Nodokir did not ascend to the top of the divine hill by being a dullard, and as she wove her arguments and counterpoints, Starwalker was reminded that she was still the goddess and patron of bards and orators, for good reason. Kill her. Again, two words, a clear command and order. Niwe wanted Starwalker to strike her down, sending her back to the halls of the V's. He wanted to display his authority and control, and that as the avatar of the Nine Wings, he was her superior, not the other way around. With his lord's power flowing through him, he could do it. He could strike her down in any number of ways, so empowered by the essence of the creators of the realms himself. It would be but a humbling, a reminder that there are things that even the Empress of the Gods must take care of when dealing with. It was a needed reality check if they were going to be ready for the encounters with foreign gods and their own elder gods. It would be war. Starwalker knew well the history of the gods, Jam'mar, and how the V's, the Empress in particular, took to threats to the realms. And if someone can threaten them, it can threaten the realms. For if the V's or the other gods are out of the picture, they cannot defend the realms, which is their overarching divine mandate. Thus, striking down Eve, even in this temporary manner, would be a clear and direct threat to the V's abilities to do their duties. And it would be war, with Niwe facing down the V's. He would lose. None of the other firsts would stand with him, not against the V's, and not over attacking the Empress. He might be the avatar of the Nine Wings, but the court of the mortal gods was endorsed not only by the Nine Wings, but the totality of the elder gods, with Master Griffin very much included. It's likely they would demand Niwe's censure, and at the very least the removal of his avatar powers. Without those, he was but a single dragon first, facing the might of the gods. Genevieve and those very gods nearly drove the Analar to extinction. A single first would not be more than a momentary distraction once battle was joined. Kill her! So Starwalker did what he had to do, and in the moment before, he realized this was exactly what he was supposed to do. His lord was a master of many predictive arts and far-sighted in the ways of planning. He knew Starwalker's response before he sent the order the first time. Starwalker bristled with a flush of annoyance. From the time he had been born, he'd been the cat's paw of one power or another. He hated not only being used thus, but moreover the fact that he could see the strings and do nothing about them. He answered, as firmly and without doubt as the day he had accepted his official role as Niwe's knight, just as it was expected from him. No. By the time the word had even left his lips, Eve had long ago left, frustrated by Niwe's nature and superior condescendence. Where the discussion had started with the sun high in the sky, it had been long set, and none of the 3 moons this night had replaced it. Leaving the patch of woods, they had been in a dark and slowly filling with deep fog place. Understood. You are dismissed. A few moments later, when the fog was at its thickest, a flash that was only momentary, but intense enough to be seen for miles, followed by the gurgle scream of agony of a dragon knight having their scale forcibly revoked, ended with 2 words, strange and softly spoken. Thank you. Less than a minute later, all was quiet and dark. Only the soft noises of insects could be heard. Strangely enough to any that might have been listening, and very closely listening, there was an absence of sounds. Where a body of prodigious size, and a dragon's scale large enough to match, hitting the earth, should have been heard. No trace of Starwalker or the scale was left. The scale likely recalled to its owner, and Starwalker had any number of items and contingencies for any manner of event. One of them spiriting him to a safe location to recover is all but a surety. In the morning, there was naught but an area of those woods filled with freshly blooming flowers, as if the forest itself gave tribute to what happened the night before, and the choices. If you'd like to contribute to the further exploration and explanation of the realms, please consider leaving a comment, a like, and sharing the video around. I read all the comments and make efforts to reply to each. Thank you for helping to grow the channel, and know I look forward to each and every one of your comments. Other methods of support can be found in the channel's description. Thank you for watching.